Hey guys, Akhtar here from Reaching Excellence, back in London. And in this video, I'm going to share with you the 7 things that stop people from actually moving forwards, learning about M&A and actually buying 6- and 7-figure businesses that will be able to help them to change their life, build wealth and live the dream. Now in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 7 specific mindset blocks or limiting beliefs that people have. And I'm going to share with you how to overcome them. So I want you to stay through to the very, very end so that if you find yourself thinking these thoughts that are actually stopping you, you know how to overcome them. So for those of you who don't know me, I've been in entrepreneurship for 30 years. I built a very successful property portfolio, multi-million-pound property portfolio. I had 20 years experience in property. I've done over 208 property transactions. For the last 3 years, I've been growing a portfolio of M&A companies with my business partner, Elliot. I'm also the author of the Code of Reaching Excellence and the founder of the Reaching Excellence Wealth Academy. And I've mentored many people over the years in business, in psychology, in property, and more recently, we're now teaching people how to buy businesses. So it's my mission to help every man, every woman who wants to be able to build serious wealth and live the dream through buying properties, buying companies, should I say, buying companies that are hands-off, that have got management structures in place so you can live the dream and enjoy the best of your life. That's what I'm about. That's my mission personally. That's what I want to help people who are interested in doing that, okay? So why am I shooting this video? Well, one of the things that I've had recently, I've had so many people come to me and say, look, Akhtar, I really like this idea of buying businesses, but here's all the challenges I've got, here's all the thoughts I've got. Now, look, one of the things that happens, and this is the first thing, okay, the first one that comes up is people say to me, Akhtar, this sounds like it's too good to be true. Now, although I understood this concept before I came into M&A, I had the same challenge when it was in property. When I first learned that you could buy a property for little to no money down, or you could buy a property off of a vendor who would sell it to you for like 25% under market value, I couldn't get my head around it. I was like, this sounds too good to be true. Why on earth would someone want to sell you a property for under market value? Same with a business. Why would someone want to sell you a business with a deferred consideration, which basically means why would they let you take it and pay off in installments? One simple reason: motivation, okay? If people are motivated sellers, if they're distressed in some way, shape or form, and it doesn't have to be the business that's distressed, if the owner is distressed, or they want to go off and move, or they want to go and retire, they want to go relocate, or they've got ill health, they've got some other challenges, if they're motivated, then they'll either sell it to you cheaper or they'll sell it to you on your terms. And one of the things I teach inside my academy, and if you've seen any of my previous videos, is we want to do deals on our terms. And there's 7 creative deal structures. I'll put a little link up around this video somewhere so you can go and watch that other video on how to do 7 creative structures, okay? So the biggest problem that people have is the first thing is this sounds too good to be true. Now look, one of the things that happens as entrepreneurs is we get so used to this idea of hustle, grinding, spinning your wheels, being stuck, working crazy hours. Well look, that might be the culture that we're taught as entrepreneurs, but there's a problem with that. It's a choice and it's a belief system. If you believe that's what you've got to do, then that's what you're going to do, okay? If you believe that actually you can be hands-off, have passive income from a business that's going to generate you 6 or 7 figure income, and you don't have to work on in the business, you can work on the business, that becomes a choice. And you see, this is the difference between 99% of entrepreneurs and the 1% top tier. The 1% top tier understand that businesses, if they're set up the right way, will generate you more money. If you look at like the top 100 people like in the world that are wealthy, they will work on the business rather than in the business. So this is a mindset shift. This is transition from being like the 99% to the 1% top tier entrepreneurs. Once you make that transition, and by the way, it's not a skill set, it's a mindset to be a 1% entrepreneur. Okay, this is an entrepreneur that chases excellence. They have a hell or high water attitude that they're going to do whatever it takes to get things done, but they do things in the smartest, most efficient way. So this is one of the things I hear all the time. It sounds too good to be true, okay? Now, what if it wasn't? Just consider this for a moment. I'm not the only person out there that is doing these deals like little to no money down and doing deferred considerations and having management teams in place. There's other people that are doing it. There's other people that teach this stuff. I've even got students of mine that are out going and doing this. In fact, I've got a student of mine, Caleb, who recently went out, asked me to help him to negotiate a large deal. This is a transport company that he's doing over in Arizona. So it was obviously over in the USA. And he asked me to help him to structure the deal in the right way and also what to say to the vendors. So I'm not the only person doing it. I've got students doing this, people around the world doing this, okay? It's one of those things that once you start to understand the concept and you see it, then you'll start to believe it, okay? And I want to give you a little caveat around that. Sometimes people say seeing is believing, but you have to believe it is possible first to then be able to like really fully accept that it exists. So the first thing is it's too good to be true, okay? Second thing that people say to me is this: Akhtar, I haven't got large amounts of money to buy businesses. So this is the second kind of limiting belief. Well, here's the thing, you don't need to have large amounts of money to buy businesses. In fact, you can do it with no money in certain circumstances. So why would someone pass a business over to you for little to no money? Motivation, distressed, okay? And also, the other thing is this, businesses don't sell very quickly. If you think about a property, if you put a property on the market, especially with the current market conditions, properties sell very, very quickly. You put it on the market, you probably get several offers in the first week. With businesses, they take a long time to sell, okay? Typically, with all the business owners that I've gone out and seen, their businesses have been on the market for 2 years, 3 years. I've seen some at 4 and 5 years. I'm even speaking with someone at the moment whose business has been on the market for 6 years. So those businesses take a long time to sell. The second thing is, the biggest reason that people want to sell their business is retirement. And if they haven't got a succession plan in place, they haven't got someone to take it over, kids to hand it to, that business now becomes a prison for them. It becomes a ball and chain around their neck, and they become motivated because they want to get out, especially if they're the more senior years of their life. So people, if they can't just sell it, they can't offload the business, they're more likely to do a deal with you that's favorable on their terms if it meets their needs. So again, I've done a video on this, on how to negotiate. This is called the Godfather Method. We put it up somewhere around here so you can go and check it out, okay? So people need to sell their businesses because they get stuck in it. So that's another reason why people want to sell, and that's why they're willing to do things in such a way that means you don't have to utilize a lot of your own money, okay? The other thing you could do, and again, with the 7 creative deal structure video that I mentioned earlier on, there's 7 ways that you can creatively structure deals. So if you haven't got your own money, you haven't got a lot of your own money, you can use other people's money, you can creatively structure those deals. I mean, we can even do it to the point where when you do an acquisition, when you're dealing with your legal team, we've actually had it before where we've got our legal team to say, okay, look, can you just hold off sending us the invoice for the legal work? Give us a week and then invoice the new company that we purchased. So it doesn't even come out of our own pocket. We buy a new company, we acquire it, and then that company pays for the legal fees. So there's very clever, creative ways of doing stuff. And if you learn this stuff and you know how to do it, and again, if you've got the right seller who's motivated, you can do things on your term, okay? The next kind of thing that stops people is they don't know what type of business to buy. Now, I've done a whole video on this that will be coming out in a week or so about how to choose the right business to buy, what kind of businesses to buy. The key thing that you want to be doing is looking for simple service-based businesses in an industry that you understand or you have some understanding of the operation, okay? There's no point me going out and trying to buy a biotech or a medtech company because I know nothing about the industry whatsoever. I understand property and I understand simple service-based businesses. If I can get my head around it and understand it and understand the operations and the numbers work and I like the business model, then it's something I could consider buying, okay? So that's the first thing. You just need to have some basic understanding. The second thing is this. When I bought my first scaffolding company, I didn't really know much about scaffolding. Now, it's pretty simple. Scaffolding goes up, it gets high, then it comes down. I don't know how to price scaffolding. I don't know how to put it together, but there's someone in the business that does that. And the caveat is this. You want to be finding businesses that you can have a management team in place. So you want to be looking for businesses that have already got management in place, ideally, that can just do the day-to-day running of the business. And then you can learn from them. So even before we actually close the deal, the actual scaffolding company, we spent a lot of time with the owner, we spent a lot of time with the manager. How does this work? What happens here? And we started to understand how the business worked. We asked all those kind of key questions to get a good understanding. And once I got a good understanding, I was then comfortable to proceed. So one of the things that you can do is when you're exploring new businesses, go and find out how it works, what they do, what the day-to-day runnings are. Go and ask if you can spend some time at the business just to see what happens on a day-to-day basis and understand how the business works. The second thing is this. If you're going to find a business that needs to have a manager in place, and let's say, for example, say there isn't for some reason, sometimes you have business owners that are operatives in the business, look for a business that you can easily find a manager to come in and do the work for you so someone can operate it for you. Now, one of the things I've done on a previous acquisition where the owner was the manager and the operator, I said to him, we'll buy the business on the condition that you bring in a manager that you train up that can take over your role. It was part of the conditions of doing the deal. So you don't need to worry too much about having industry knowledge and industry expertise. I didn't know nothing about scaffolding a year ago. I know enough now, but again, I don't work in the business and do the day-to-day operational stuff. I work on the business. I look at the business, I look at how it's running, and I look at how we can grow it and scale it. That's really what you want to be doing. You don't want to be doing this working in the business stuff because you're creating another job for yourself. You want to be the CEO of your group of companies. You want to be the king of your domain or the queen of your domain and work on the businesses rather than in the businesses. And that's what's going to get you the time and the freedom that you want, okay? The other thing is sometimes people say to me, well, I haven't got no business experience. Now, yeah, I get that. Now, if you've never run a business before or you've got no business experience, let's say, for example, say you've been in a corporate role or you've been employed all your life, you've never had that. I get that. That can be quite a daunting thing, but this is something that you can learn. You can learn how to run a business. You can actually learn from the manager. You can learn from the previous owner. In some cases, when it comes to doing an acquisition, one of the things that you can do is have the owner stay with you and give you a handover period, 12 months, 18 months. You can then have them on a longer basis if you wanted to, on a consultancy basis, and all these things can be stitched into a contract. So it gives you the opportunity to actually learn about the business and hand over. So you're not expected to go into a business and go, great, I know everything from day one. Now, there are some scenarios where a business owner just wants to get out and hand it over. I personally wouldn't say, unless you're experienced in that field, maybe it's not the best thing to do, but you want to be able to kind of learn as you go along, have someone transition and hand the business over to you so you have a good understanding and a grasp, okay? And remember, there's always ways of doing things. For every problem, there's a solution, okay? And it's just about figuring out what's going to work for you in your scenario. So you don't need to worry if you haven't got much business experience. You can learn that stuff. You can learn it from the manager. You can learn it from the previous owner. And of course, there's plenty of ways you can educate yourself. You can come and work with someone like me or come into our academy. We don't only teach people how to acquire businesses, but we teach them how to grow and scale them as well. The next limiting belief that people have is, what if I make a costly mistake? What if it all goes wrong? What if it all goes belly up and I'm then liable? Okay, well, yeah, that is a valid point. Now, the way that you deal with that and you mitigate that risk is by how you structure the company. So first of all, you'll have a company that you purchase. You'll then hold those shares in what's called an SPV, a special purpose vehicle. What does it mean? It basically means it's a company that has the sole purpose of holding the shares. Above that, you will then have what's called a holding company, which owns the SPV. Now, why do we do that? Well, look, let's say, for example, say you buy a company and it's all going well, and then 6 months later, something that happened in the past comes back to bite you on the bum. If the company gets forced into a situation or they get sued or whatever else, they're going to come after the shareholders. And one of the things that you need to do is make sure that you are not liable. So by having that SPV, if anything happens, you're able to then fold that company, and that limits the liability. So this is one way of doing things that literally minimizes your risk. The other thing is this: if you're buying the business using a creative strategy or deferred consideration, you're not getting bank finance. There's no personal guarantees. You don't have to put your house up as collateral. So that, again, is another way of minimizing the risk to make sure that the acquisition is safe for you. The next thing is this. People say to me, I don't know how to go and find businesses. Where should I go and get them? It's really, really simple, okay? Again, there's fewer people competing to buy businesses. In my experience, there's really only 3 types of people that are buying businesses. All the large businesses, 10, 20, 30 million pound turnover, are bought by big private equity firms or big companies that want to merge them, okay? The smaller businesses, let's say 100,000 to like a mil, okay, the only type of people that are buying those is people who've got existing businesses that want to grow by acquisition. So let's say, for example, you've got somebody who's got a business and it might be in central London. They might decide they want to have a business in a home county. So rather than starting a business from scratch, they're going to acquire another one so they can grow by acquisition. And the final kind of person, which is people like you and I, smarter people go, you know what, instead of me going through the pain of growing a business from scratch, capital up front, the sweat, the tears, the stress, the sleepless nights, I'll just buy a ready-made business that I can step into. So these are the type of people that are buying those businesses. So, when it comes to that, the best place to go and find these businesses is just looking online. So you can go and find business brokers. There's plenty of them out there. And it's going to be the easiest way to actually go and find businesses for sale. Now, there's a challenge with business brokers, and that is this. Sometimes when you're dealing with business brokers, they can set unrealistic expectations of how much a business is worth. So I mentioned earlier that there was a business owner that had his business on the market for 6 years. That's because the business broker told him his business was worth 6 times profit. Now, in my world, it's too much. My model for buying business is normally 2 times profit plus asset value. So if a business turns over £200,000 a year, I value that at £400,000. If it's got £100,000 worth of assets, I'd add that to the fold. So the problem with business brokers is sometimes there's unrealistic expectations that have been set. And once people get wedded to those ideas, it's quite difficult for them to get out of that idea if it's worth 6 times back to realities where it's worth only 2 times or whatever I'm willing to pay for it. Now, look, just a little caveat here. A business is worth what it's worth to you. So if you're going to pay more for the business, but you're going to get more in the long run, it doesn't really matter. It's just what's a good deal for you. The problem you have when a business broker set these massively high expectations with people is that they've got this idea and they're wedded to it. So when they've been told the business is worth 6 times, they get this idea that there's a certain amount of money they're going to get. And that's what they're expecting. But what happens is in their head is they've already spent that money. They've already planned their retirement. They've already planned the villa in Spain. They've already planned the world cruises and everything else. So it takes some very skillful negotiation to get their belief system down to reality, because what happens with a lot of sellers is they go through what's called cognitive dissonance, which means they've got two opposing ideas. They've got this fantasy in their mind of what they're going to do with 6 times profit or 10 times profit, whatever BS the business broker has got. And then they've got the reality, which is actually this is what you're willing to pay for it. This is why it's not being sold. And this is what most business buyers or M&A buyers will pay for your business. That takes a little bit of skillful negotiation to get them down. And it takes a bit of time for them to kind of come out the bubble that's been burst. But again, it's doable, okay? So that's the problem with like dealing with business brokers. The second thing you can do is, as you become more clear on what your industry is and what you want to look for, you can actually start approaching companies direct. So you can go and search for companies online from Companies House. You can actually go on Google and like do a demographic search and say, I'm looking for a specific type of company in an area. You get a list, and then one of the things you can do is get your team or yourself to actually contact those companies, send them out a letter and approach them. The third way of doing things is actually picking up the phone as well and just seeing if you can get past the gatekeeper and get to the director and have that conversation, say, look, we're interested in buying this particular company or these types of companies. If you're interested in selling, could we have a conversation? So finding those business is pretty easy, okay? It's really easy when you compare it to property, because everyone and their dog is looking for property right now. The final thing that we have is that people say, I don't know how to negotiate a deal. Okay, and this is a block that happens. Look, there is a process that we go through. And again, I've got another video called The Godfather Method that talks you and walks you through that process of how to handle that meeting and how to handle that negotiation, okay? Here's the thing, if you can learn to negotiate a property deal, you can learn to negotiate how to do an M&A deal. It's not complicated. With everything in life, doesn't matter what there is, there's a step-by-step process. And once you learn to understand what that process is, and you go and practice and put it into practice, it doesn't take long before you start to build up your skill set. So the key thing when it comes to actually negotiating a deal is to know two things. You need to know what the process of the sale is. What's the process of the acquisition? And if you know that step-by-step process and you've got an understanding of it, you can then communicate that to the seller, because quite often business owners, they don't understand the sales process unless they've sold a business before. So that you need to be in a position where you lead them and you can tell them, here's how it's going to work. We're going to do this. This is the process. And here's what we're going to do right now. We're going to have a conversation and we're going to go through that process, okay? So if you understand what that process is, and again, this is something we teach inside the academy, you can learn that, and it makes it super simple for you to go out there and actually go and negotiate those deals, okay? Because you've got a blueprint and you've got a step-by-step plan to work from, okay? So those are the things that stop most people from actually going out and doing deals. This is a question I get asked time and time again, okay? These are actually beliefs, okay? These are limiting beliefs that stop you. Why do they stop you? Is because you haven't got the answer to the problem, which is what I've given you in this video here today. So what I'd like you to do, guys, I hope you found this really, really useful. Understand, if ever you start thinking this way, this is just a limiting belief, and there's a solution to every problem, okay? And once you've got the skill set, you go and put it to practice, you'll be able to do more deals than anyone else, okay? You'll be able to get out there, start meeting people, start finding deals, start negotiating them, understanding how to structure them, and how to get those deals across the line in the most clever, creative way. So I want you to go out there. I'm glad you stayed to the very end. I hope you got all the things that you need to do to be able to get yourself unstuck, okay? So guys, here's what I'd like you to do now, okay? If you found this video useful, you've got any more questions, put your questions, any ahas or any realizations you've had, put them in the comment section below. Okay, this will help me out, because what it'll do is it'll let me know what other content you want to know, what other content you want to share, and I'll just be interested to know what your feedback is. Also, tell me what you've taken from this video and put into practice, and what you've learned and what's actually been helpful for you. Second thing is, if you want to learn more about this stuff, come and join our private Facebook group. There'll be a link below this video. And finally, we have a masterclass. We've had so many people asking for us for some training. We have a free masterclass. So you can look below this video. You can go and watch that masterclass. And at the end of that masterclass, there'll be an opportunity for you to book a call with me and my team if you want to have a one-to-one strategy call that will help you to take you from where you are now to where you want to be. So guys, hope you found this video useful. Go out there, put this into practice. Get those crappy thoughts out of your head. Keep pushing forwards, okay? Do whatever it takes to go and build wealth so you can live your dream. Hope you found this useful. See you on the next video. Take care. Bye for now.